We set up a time to meet prior to when we start. When you show up 3 minutes before you start,
I was here. I was trying to get this thing situated. It sucks.
I show up typically an hour before the show.
Yeah, tell the people why their time is invaluable. All right, you're listening to the most downloaded HVAC entertainment podcast in the world. Welcome.
Is it wrong of me to contest? Because how do you know that we're the most downloaded HVAC podcast? I really don't think that's true.
I don't know. I saw somebody posting, I think it was Tersh or one of them, and they were like, hey, we just hit this. And then I looked up our metrics and we were like 4 or 5 times that. So I'm like, yeah, good job, Tersh.
Whoever was. I mean, I can tell you.
Oh my god!
I can tell you we're the most downloaded entertainment HVAC.
I mean, if we believe it deep down, it's got to be true, right?
Because I said it.
Right.
I do have to.
If it wasn't true,
I do have to say something real quick before we introduce our guest today. I got to say thanks again to Ryan Hughes for that intro, because that really is a cool intro. I do enjoy watching that. That is really cool of him to do that. So,
it was. It is.
And if people don't know who I'm talking about, Ryan Hughes from the Hughesman HVAC YouTube channel and from Misfits of HVAC. So go check out Ryan. He does that kind of work for free. So just hit him up, shoot him an email. He'll do it for you for free. So,
and it's usually
completely
like
for
4-hour turnaround, really quick.
Yeah, just tell him you need the 911 rush service and tell him that you need the HVAC overtime discount and just say you expected it to be free, and he'll
and I think he'll like give you 25% off if you use the code misfitsflatearth.com or something like that.
Yeah, actually I heard that if you use the Misfits Flat Earth code that he'll send you $3,000. So that's a pretty 100%. Good deal. Yeah. So there you go.
Wow, so much free stuff here.
Exactly. Yeah, free stuff.
Where have I
been?
None of
that stuff is true. So who is this guy, Adam?
This is Joe. This is not the Joe that we...
Is this the new Joe? Like, are we getting rid of our Joe and then this is our new Joe?
This is definitely a new Joe.
Okay. I'm Joe Mama, so let's make sure we talk about the right Joes at the right time.
Our Joe is like our punching bag. We just all pick at him. One of these days he's going to go psycho and we're all going to end up dead. Our wives are actually all concerned because Joe, the new Joe, right? Just so that you know that our Joe, we've been, good God, this is getting confusing, but our Joe, we've been friends with for how many years now? 5, 6 years?
Joe doesn't know that there's a Joe that's missing, but I think he's figured
maybe we could add a last initial or something to kind of help those.
We don't know his last initial.
Yeah,
well, that's what I'm getting at.
We call him Joe somebody. We don't know.
We don't know who
there you go.
He is. Yeah. We think he lives in Canada. He will not give us his address. We've shipped him stuff before, and he has it shipped to his brother's neighbor.
Joe C. Moosebanger. Is that a good name?
We don't know.
Call him that.
So, and the chat loves the whole Joe.
You're tall to bang a moose.
Yes.
He's got a ladder. One of those gorilla ladders. The kind where you can turn around and like use the back thing as handles. I've seen it.
You've done it. You've done it. You can't talk about that. You've done it.
That's why he's not going to kill me, because me and Joe are like tight.
Yeah.
Like a moose butt.
Yeah. No.
But actually, this is Joe Madosh. Yes. From where? From MeasureQuick.
That's right.
Variety places. Yeah. I'm in Colorado. Just that's where I would stay.
I can tell. It must be cold outside there.
Where that's actually Wyoming background, but it's cold. It's close enough, right?
I found that out. For whatever reason, I thought you lived in Ohio since you worked for MeasureQuick. I called him one morning, I think at 7 o'clock in the morning, Central Time, because Ohio's like an hour ahead of me. So I'm like, yeah, they're at work, whatever. And he's like, just so you know, it's like I'm sleeping right now. Okay, so.
But it's okay. A lot of people do that, but I actually don't hold normal hours. I'm like, man, if I'm even up by 9ish, and Jim's known me forever. So he goes, I know you got weird hours, so it's all right. We got it. So by the time I'm kind of rolling, he's at lunch.
Yeah.
So
that is too funny. You didn't even tell me that, Adam.
That was a long time ago.
That's a dick move.
I felt really bad. Well, I assumed he lived in Ohio. He works for MeasureQuick. I don't know.
And it happens a lot. They'll text me like, hey, when you're up, give us a call. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's nothing I hate more than calls in the middle of the night.
No, so you don't get these, Bill, but there's nothing worse than a restaurant manager putting in a work order when they're leaving the restaurant at 2 a.m. through Service Channel, and then Service Channel has someone call from another country that you can't even understand
or something
within 30 minutes of the service call, and he goes, they asked for emergency service to replace a gasket on their walk-in freezer. And like, these poor guys probably just get it because you just lay into this guy. Like, for real, did you really fucking call me at 3 a.m. to tell me that they need a gasket? Like, that's
like, really, Ahmed, did you really pop out of a genie bottle and call me for this?
That just drives me nuts.
My name is Kyle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I call him Bob from India. So,
like, are you calling me from the 7-Eleven that you own?
Yeah. All right. Pushing buttons. See, I've made an effort here that what I have to do is when Bill says something that's right on the edge, I have to address and say, Bill, that wasn't very nice, and I'm not going to laugh at your.
That sensitivity training we went to isn't working.
It's working for me. So, yes.
So, one thing I learned a little while now about Joe is, Joe, you kind of got into HVAC in the building performance side. That's where you started off.
I was also a home inspector, so I've been observing you guys for years, but not in your industry as much. So
let me ask you this:
how shitty of a job we do all the time, and
so to me, if I can walk up to a system and find the visual problems, then I'm like, there's problems. So yeah.
So Joe, have you seen this home inspector that's popping up on social media right now? That's getting popular because he's bashing the HVAC trade.
No, but I'm not surprised at all. But yeah, right.
It's within the last like 3 weeks. This guy just started making a social media following, and all he's done is bash the HVAC trade. And he's sitting here, he's holding like a 1-inch standard filter, and he's like, these HVAC guys, every one of them, they're out there to rip you off. They charge you this much, and they should, these filters. And it's so asinine. And he's clearly doing this just to get follows. And if you go watch his content too, this guy's just an idiot. Like, he really is. And he's just,
I saw the other channel where it was an HVAC contractor doing that. So it's there are too many of them out there. That's right.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of them.
I mean, it kind of is a shit show of an industry, let's be honest. But like, I didn't even realize, I knew it was bad for a long time, but like when you start digging into the whole home performance thing and you learn more and more about it, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
It's a dumpster fire, right?
It is.
It's a deep rabbit hole, the whole home performance thing, building science, testing.
I mean, I question whether or not there's got to be of course, I want HVAC contractors to handle everything, but at some point, it's starting to make me think that there needs to be a separation here because it's getting to be a little bit ridiculous. Trying to get, how do I say this politely? Trying to get normal technicians to actually start thinking and try to solve.
So are you thinking like there should be a separation of like the guy who actually turns the wrenches versus the guy who's like, all right, wrench turning guy said there might be an issue with your airflow or something, and then they send out the airflow building testing guy?
Well, yeah, because what our industry, in my opinion, there's a tool company out there that's going to make a tool that's a one-stop shop that's going to tell you what your airflow is perfectly, and there's nothing else that can possibly affect it. So every HVAC technician is going to buy it and go out and say, yep, this is bad. Just like what are those mega ohm meters that just give you lights, good, bad, okay, and it's like, you put that on every compressor is bad. Well, no shit, because you don't know how a scroll compressor works,
Want to hear something real stupid? Way back in the day, you've probably seen this, Chris, but on the counter of some supply houses, they had this little tiny blue, like a little, I forget what it was actually called, but a little fan. You could plug it right in your phone.
It's an anemometer. Yeah.
Anemometer.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was going to say. you stole it before I could say it. And you plug it right in your phone, put an app on there, like you can measure airflow. I bought one of those years and years ago. I'm like, man, I'm going to test all the airflow. I'm going to balance restaurants with this thing.
Yeah.
And I was up on roofs, like holding it over an exhaust hood. I'm like, yeah, we're good. I mean, look at those numbers. They mean stuff.
And
So, yeah, we're good.
nowhere
got
in
this.
the instructions for that does it tell you that it's only accurate within so much, space away, and it has to be perfect. And if anybody's ever tried to take a vane anemometer and actually measure airflow, you realize how inconsistent it is and how perfect you have to be with your traverses to
how
get
it
the exact
cavitates and like turbulates all over
But the interesting thing, and I think it might have been something that Jim Bergman had said back when he was doing True Tech Tools or something like that, was when I first started buying like some of the field piece tools and the anemometers, the ones that they had, but was realizing that there's turbulence, because it was hard for me to grasp that there was turbulence in duct systems. But then if you take something and actually measure it in the duct system and you're like a half inch over, it's not the same measurement. A half inch over, it's different. It's like, wait, and there's no logic really when it's very interesting.
That's kind of
how many people here have a CPS hood? It's using just a little larger of the exact same device. In fact, that device was made by CPS. So there's a lot of anything that's that small, or you're using your hand to measure something, then I'm like, you're lost. You failed.
That's true.
So what's your background in, like, to get back to the subject on building?
I was going to say, we're getting off track.
How do you, how'd you get started in it, and how deep did you get? Where did you work?
So I was doing a variety of small construction and large construction stuff. And I got a chance. I was living in Chicago. We decided to leave, so I moved to Arizona, and I was doing home inspections. And then I got into green building from a lot of people that are out there. So I'm like, this is cool. And my buddy got an opportunity to go to Georgia to follow a grant that was doing mostly weatherization, but it was for people who were destitute, impoverished, in prison, out of work, remedial math. And I'm like, okay, I didn't realize that till I showed up. So I had to teach those guys how to do weatherization and blower doors and duct testing, but I had a huge amount of money to spend. So I got to play with all kinds of stuff, make my own props, make my own little tiny houses and everything. So I'm like, this is cool. And what changed my life was that one night, Cullen Ginge, who owns RetroTech, is doing a dinner up in Atlanta, and I drove 4 hours up to see him. He kind of just came in from Europe and literally passed out at dinner, but it was enough for me to catch his attention, and I ended up working for them about 4 months later. And he's like, okay, you know what? I like what you're doing. Just go do it. And they gave me a credit card and said, just go. So I was able to then go to all these shows and put them back on the map and do a variety of stuff and help them develop product. And, just that was it. I now was in the trade. So it's really hard to get in the trade, as many of you guys know. So I'm presenting at all the conferences, and that was it. From then on, I've been able to just move. And that's when I met Jim Bergman. He was doing iManifold. I invented the R Cloud, which is automated testing for RetroTech. So, I have a couple of soapboxes besides filtration. The other one is that why don't we accept what our tools tell us and just capture it? We're always are writing stuff down. You write down whatever level you want. Why use your tools? Just write down what you think it should be. So we were working on California, wanted to know what is the temperatures that Jim was measuring and what is your airflow and your duct leakage, and those two together, we're going to change California. And we were so close, and then it got shut down. But from then on, I've always been like, direct capture. You got stuff that tells you what it is, capture it. Don't be freaking writing crap down. It's just so many industries are you clearly could tell it's one of my soapbox issues is like, capture it and accept what it is. We're so afraid of that. So from then on, it led down this path.
In layman's terms, Joe, are you talking about the old school method of writing it down, then possibly entering it into some sort of data program, and then processing it from there?
You mean what they still do today? That's not really that. Yeah, nothing has changed. I don't see anybody rarely taking stuff that comes directly from any kind of a gauge and directly capturing it and saying, okay, those are my final numbers. So that's such a fraction of the industry right now for anything, not just HVAC, but even home performance and a variety of stuff. There's just so many places where we just still are afraid to just accept what it is. So we're like, God, if it was only this number, it'd be a whole lot better. So let me just do a little bit here. It won't make a big of a difference. So, yeah.
I was just thinking about something right now, and I don't know if I'm changing the conversation completely, but do you think that the industry can get fixated on some of these softwares and completely ignore basic problems? Like, that's something that I worry about when we have software that technicians tend to just blindly follow, and they don't look kind of at the big picture and say, hey, you know what, it's something super simple. Like, you guys get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, well, Jim and I are total on the same page, and that is, your whatever you're measuring should only confirm what you're seeing
Yeah,
and
yeah,
hearing and touching, and you know what, I think it's this. These tools help me confirm that. So if you're not focused on what you're experiencing and you're seeing, then you really are not observing what's really there. So that's why I said, as a home inspector, I could find so many issues that are probably a problem. But
Well, that's assuming that you can correlate the two, correlate the problem that you're seeing versus the information that you're reading. Then I assume you can.
Yeah, or then say, no, what, maybe that's not, maybe there's something else. It's not this visual issue, or maybe it's not it. So, but yeah,
I think that is one thing when people think, because like there'll be social media commenters and stuff, and they're like, using a press tool is dumbing down the industry. Using software is dumbing down the industry. And it's like, no, it's not. You still, like, using a press tool, people don't realize how much prep has to go into prepping the pipe before you can actually press. And if you don't, there's going to be a million problems with it. Same thing with
I don't know. I tell the people, put your computer away and your phone, and now just you keep do it all or nothing. You're like, oh, you know what, this is really messing up what people really know. I'm like, well, get rid of your computer, see how well you do.
No, yeah. But I think that the industry, it's none of this stuff is dumbing down the industry. It's just giving us technicians other new tools that helps us to get to a diagnosis that maybe, 25 years ago, I didn't know about airflow. Like, I knew that you needed airflow, but I didn't know what it did. Having something like MeasureQuick.
I feel like that's comparable to telling a roofer to use a hammer and a nail instead of a nail gun, just because you want them to understand what it's like to use a hammer and a nail.
I remember when digital manifolds were first starting to become popular, right? And everyone was like, well, the new techs need to learn how to calculate superheat and subcooling. It's like, they can't subtract like double-digit numbers. Like, do you learn that in like first grade? Do they really need to learn how to do that by hand? Isn't it pretty easy just to show it on the screen? I don't understand.
Well, I think that one thing, it's really easy to use a tool like a pipe clamp thermometer or something like that and not have it make good contact. So then it's going to give you an incorrect reading. And if you blindly follow something, right, if you're not confirming that that tool is actually working correctly, then you input that into software and it's going to throw you off. The same thing can happen if you incorrectly put a thermocouple on a pipe and try to calculate the superheat with a calculator. You're still going to get an incorrect
number. With not just saying MeasureQuick, any of these programs, Testo, Fieldpiece, anything else, if you map your probes incorrectly, or you are using them on the
correctly, right?
You install them incorrectly, you're going to have bad data, right?
The same thing.
Junk data in, junk data out.
That's 100% true. Yeah, 100%.
So let me just throw this out here. As a guy who's never done a load calculation ever in my entire life, would you guys say that you would recommend guys learn to do load calculations? Like, I don't know if there's an old school method, do them by hand before they get into any sort of software.
It's honestly like, all right, so go ahead, Joe. If you go ahead,
I know it. So there's some things that are like, well, it's like, how many people still do their taxes by hand or understand what all's happening there? Like, those aren't realities anymore. But I think that understanding R values and how hot to cold and some basic principles never hurt anybody in the industry. But trying to like do a fun exercise. Okay, how much energy does this room need, and BTUs, and add people? It's funny to just do it. I mean, those are what schooling and your education should be about. But that doesn't mean I need to do really a whole house all the time or understand what that is. But I should understand how to make sure those the inputs, I know where they came from, and that square footage is accurate, and what's on that wall, and what is that real R value. What's an effective R value is something that most of the industry is clueless about. That they're like, okay, my wall's got R13, and I'm like, well, how many studs you got in your wall, right? What's really going on in your wall? So that's not really the way you think about it. Like, oh yeah, I got R13, so all my walls are R13. Well, your studs are probably 25% of that, and you've really just lost a significant amount. So if they don't have to measure those things or calculate them, but the concept they should understand how homes are, how ineffective a home is. So when they're trying to figure out, when they're talking to a client that they're really uncomfortable and it's the southwest side of the house and it's their master bedroom, and you're wondering why is it always so much hotter in here, and they had no clue that it's actually because the freaking sun is on that side of the house more than anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's a major failure.
I think that if because I remember taking load calculation classes way back in college, right? Did I ever do a load calculation by hand after I took the classes? No, I never did. But the first time I used RightSoft, I could fumble my way through RightSoft and I could have a basic understanding. I still didn't have experience. And then working your way through, and I could only imagine if I started on RightSoft and didn't know anything about load calculations before and got incorrect information, it'd be a nightmare to try to figure out where the error was. So
yeah, I think it was so I was kind of lost with everything, and the first exposure I had to it was taking the ACA online design class with Jack Rise, and that was a really cool class. But at the end of a day working and you're sitting on a computer and you're listening to him talk, and he has like a, kind of like a grandfather style storytelling voice, and he's talking about like CLTDs and U factor in that. Like you could only manage about a half hour, 45 minutes at a time before you start nodding off. But that gave me a good understanding of it, and I think doing something like that before taking a class on a software is important.
Yeah. And Hausch makes so Hausch says he learned more about loads fooling with the software and seeing what the inputs affected. Not to inflate your ego, Hausch, but I mean, you're a rare breed. You're a person that really likes to think and analyze things. And that's perfect that it works for you that way. I'm a dum-dum. So like, I like having a foundation for me. Now everybody's different. So I don't think it's a one-stop answer. I don't think every technician needs to learn the basics.
I can relate to like what Hausch is saying on a little tiny level anyway. Like if I had this I don't know, app or a program or something, I'm just like putting in numbers like, what if this wall was this thick or had R12 or R13? Like I really don't know what all that stuff means, but as I'm like just punching in numbers and seeing how that affects things, and like, oh, my BTUs are going up or my load is moving, like that's I mean, that's kind of cool. I could see
turn the house 90 degrees, see what you
yeah, see how much airflow that room now needs.
Like, what if there's an extra window in the room, just stuff like that. And I think that would be a good learning experience.
Russ King from Quick Model, he gave me a bit of advice to do exactly what you're saying, Bill, and just like play with the inputs. And like, because I would sweat like little details, and he's like, dude, go play with it several different times and see, like you're gonna notice that it, like, you might have an effect of like 300 BTUs or something like that, and you're worrying about something. Like, play with it. Is it a big deal or is it not a big deal? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but you'll figure it out,
So the only one that you guys are still talking about but still miss what I think is the bigger picture is that we're talking about the load, but we don't talk about air leakage. You may have an R50 wall, but how leaky is it? How much air is infiltrating in and out of these houses? That impacts you more than sometimes that load does. So,
and what kind of air? What's the relative humidity of the air? How much does it increase the load? We heard Steve Rogers told us a really cool story about him and Jenry Garcia and how they worked through a problem, and it was very interesting to hear how this much leakage equaled 5 times the amount of needed BTUs for the building, and simply solving that leakage, and you're kind of getting, I think, on air quality too, Joe. Like, not only are we talking about humidity, but we're talking about pollutants in the air.
Did you kind of dive into the air quality thing when you were doing the home performance? Does that go hand in hand together?
Yeah. So I was deep into the energy. So I, was really focused on, pressure dynamics and boundaries and all that kind of stuff, and testing and all that stuff. And then I just, something hit me as epiphany, like, And I was also interested in healthy homes and had lots of people that I was working with at that time. And I realized that all of the work that we're doing that's in weatherization and blower door and trying to seal up houses has a fraction of energy, but it has huge impacts on the health of the occupant, just massive. And that was kind of not done because you couldn't really calculate it. And there's a study that came out today out in Kansas City that just kind of justified a lot of that stuff. So it's phenomenal what it actually does for your occupants, and sometimes your occupants aren't even aware of it. And it isn't until you get a really good good wildfire coming through your area do you understand what infiltration and indoor air quality have to do with your house. So I literally dropped energy, and my new mantra was that energy is a waste of energy. It's just the amount of energy. How many people does it take to reduce 1 watt in a house, whether it's a bulb or infiltration? Focus on the health impacts that happen, and then you actually have something that your clients will pay a lot more money for. They'll pay way more money to reduce the exposure of their kids for health issues than they will to trying to reduce $12 a month on their energy bill. So focus on really what hits the occupant in the pocketbook, or their concerns are actually, you'll find, are much larger than saving $5.
I'd say there's got to be a good portion of people, though, that are more reactionary than, wanting to plan and prepare for things. So how do you convince a homeowner that, they can go spend 25 grand and have an air conditioner in their house changed, or they can spend 75 grand and have the envelope tightened up, a smaller air conditioner installed? They'll be healthier, they'll be more comfortable, but where in the heck are they going to get that money?
So, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I know we have a lot of things on the table, and some of this is kind of expensive, but I guess that indoor air quality really is not a priority for you and your family. Is that an accurate statement? Should we just talk about actually being comfortable?
It is, but that will come across as condescending really quick. So
I don't know. You should get. I know some of you guys do Sandler. I'm a strong Sandler person. That if you just actually go right at it, and it's okay, let them. Let them make the decision.
You want your kids to die or what?
I mean, in reality, it's true, right? It's true that the air quality is a thing, but it's like you got to be careful, because we are skating the line of the sleazeball salesman in this industry right now, especially on the resi side. So, and I understand that there is good people.
I don't think we are not.
Yeah, well, let's just make sure we're talking about all the crap that people are putting in their freaking units.
I'm trying to become one of those $1 million salesmen.
All of your air is now completely safe from COVID because I put this blue light in your freaking air handler or whatever. So talk about sleazy. That's actually it.
Listen, my average ticket every day is $18,000
right here. Let me put this in your house, and it'll solve all your problems, right?
Yeah, right. Just gargle with bleach and you'll be fine.
I walk in smoking a cigarette and be like, if I can get in here with all this smoke, then soaking the smoke outside, your kids are dying.
Yeah, right. Your kids will be dead by the end of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get to you for 2 weeks, so let's just
pass out cigarettes to all the kids.
Move on.
It's funny because my wife, so as I've been going along my home project to sealing up the air leakage in my house, what I'm doing is I'm sealing up the obvious leaks, and sealing up a lot of stuff. But what's happening is my house is going so negative right now that it's pulling like dust and dirt from places that it never did before. And a lot of them are from where I'm not, I'm a slab on grade foundation, and it's not sealed properly. So we're pulling a lot of dirt and dust. So my wife's like, why all of a sudden in the last 3 months is there dust everywhere in the house? And it's like, that's part of the process. Like, we're getting there. We're going to solve these problems. Trust me, it's going to get better. And this is the problem when I'm not doing it over to, a 5-day period. I've been taking 6 months to do this, but she's going nuts because she's like, there's dust everywhere. And I'm like, trust me, it'll get better. I promise.
It's good dust.
Yeah, it's good dust. It's promising.
It's happy dust.
All right, so you're in California, Joe. We're back to California. You were
wait. No, I didn't. I worked for somebody in California, but I never was in California.
So. Oh, you were okay. You were gonna change the face of California. You were gonna save California.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, going back to there. That's right. Yeah. So California has mandated stuff that you have to do there more than any place else. In fact, most of our codes all come from California 3 years later. So
I'm sorry about that, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So
my bad.
I'm sorry for you, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So we were all set to do this. We were really close, and then they have this energy commission people, and suddenly somebody got on the commission and be like, this isn't acceptable. We don't think you should be allowed to have this direct data come into play and make decisions about whether or not a home passes or what we're after. And it actually was $1 billion savings for the state, and somebody just got in the middle of it because they had some other alternative plan, is what we've learned later. So we just put our tail between our legs and said, F you, we're out of here. Eventually this stuff will come back together, and it did. Jim eventually left iManifold, and did MeasureQuick, thank God, and I ended up doing other stuff and brought that back to here we are together. So yeah.
So now you're at MeasureQuick,
Mhm.
and what are you doing for MeasureQuick? What are you doing for Jim?
So I mean, you guys
Besides
kind of know
being
Jim, but Jim is really insightful. So Jim said uh, he knew me well. I mean, he knows my idiosyncrasies. You know, I'm up till 3, 4 in the morning regularly. I do whatever. I'm on my own kind of schedule. And he goes, you know, Joe, the only thing that I have to do for you is get out of your way. That was it. That was my job description. Just you know what we need to have done. You need to just come in and get it done. So, and of course, he was in my way for a lot of the stuff that I wanted to get done. Took a while for us to find a common place, but my goal was to figure out what needed for MeasureQuick to get moving into another level. And just as I came on, we did this MeasureQuick 2.0. And I told him, I said, I'm not coming on unless you figure out a better path, because I think anybody that could follow what you're freaking doing right now is a genius, because only 7 people can do it besides you. This is not a sustainable method. But I couldn't dig in and adjust things because we had to get it done at a certain time frame. So I was not able to understand exactly what the hell we're measuring and how it works, but that we had to get it done early in the season so that people could try and implement it. So that was a year ago, May. That's when MeasureQuick 2.0 came out. And then after it came out, I was still preaching what Jim was saying. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make any sense. You're tasking people to go do the freaking profile as the first thing, and the profile's outside for the majority of it. And there's very fraction of it is inside. So now we're inside, we're outside, we're measuring this, we're measuring that. And I said, this is I'm like, this isn't working. So I convinced him finally about a month ago to just stop. So we redid everything. Most of you that are listening haven't seen it yet. It's our new guided workflow. It actually says, okay, here's how you do it. You can chug along right here. We keep you inside to do everything you need to do inside. And we've gotten some feedback from people like Reardon, who says, I need to capture the electrical immediately. I'm in an attic. I don't want to go back into the attic and measure it later. I'm in the attic. I want to do everything I got to do in the attic and get the hell out of the attic. So we're like, okay, we made adjustments for that kind of process. So our goal was to be like, okay, you're inside, you're outside, and then you finish up whatever you need to do to capture all this stuff and benchmark and leave. And we did. So many of you that know MeasureQuick, there was no difference between an install and a service workflow. And it drove me nuts, because if you're doing an install, why do I need to like do a test in and a test out? That's illogical. So I'm like, stop. Our new workflows are, if you're doing an install, you just gather your measurements inside and out, and you just test out. You're done. Benchmark it and you're done. For a service, you find all your problems and show them to your client and be like, okay, here's my vital score, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Should I continue? Do you want me to fix all this stuff? And they say, yes. You hit a button, we're continuing, and you fix your stuff. Say no. You gathered everything you need to leave the job right then and there. Like, okay, that's great. Probably somebody else from my company will be back because everybody else is an idiot. You left some great information on the table, but they can come back and finish off where you left off. So that was a major change for us as to how you do an install versus a service workflow. So we'll probably be out in the middle of the month for everybody else to experience this new concept. So
how's this new workflow going to work on the commercial side?
I don't know. So one of the things I try to forget. So I'm not a technician. So in the commercial side, it's a whole nother animal. So all of our commercial questions we send back to Jim. Right?
Got
so
it.
we're like, okay, that's kind of like the concept. So most people are doing commercial, understand MeasureQuick on a high level, because they're able to rewrap it into a whole nother world, is how my conclusion is. Yeah.
For me, like when I go to work on a commercial packaging unit or something like that, the way I started is I start with the profile. I'll put in my tonnage, my expansion valve, my whatever. I put all my probes on, and then I pull up the screen and have all the data in front of me, so it's all consolidated, so I can swipe between pages and look at the unit and say, okay, I got 3 compressors. There, this one's low, this one's overcharged, this one, and just be able to scroll through. So are we still going to be able to use, the existing workflow or something like it with this new setup? Are we still going to be able to are we going to have to go through the exact steps?
No. So right now our new workflow is trying to help people who are new to it, so they can understand how to do it. Right. Okay. At any point you can just hit exit and go back to the way it was. But the problem was, the way it was that you looked at what your workflow was and it wasn't in order, or it didn't really take you down. Okay. So I'm like, you know what, this sucks. Let's just, because once people have been using it for a while, you can't take it away. So you're like, okay. So if those of you that want to go back and you've already figured out your own methodology, in fact, I actually have these, I call them a bypass. I have this, follow this if you really want to move through it. because you're trying to figure out what to do next. Stay
Yeah.
inside, do these things, and you can stay with the existing workflow that we have.
Right.
But you can always, not have to use it. You don't have to do it at any time. We're clearly, Jim invented the damn thing to let anybody do whatever they wanted, and that's been the disaster since day one. That we allowed, like, here's some great diagnostics and so lots of straight stuff to do. Use it as you want. And we're like, no, people want some kind of guidance, and so we really didn't do that.
I've been saying that for like 10 years.
Yeah, right.
I was like, they should have a dumber version for people like me who don't really do this on a daily basis. Because I jump in there, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll just use it to look at gauges on my phone like a fancy person.
Yeah.
I did. I felt like an idiot, because I would watch videos of a new feature that would come out with Jim, on YouTube, and Jim would fly through the video so fast, and I'd be, hitting pause, trying to rewind to a certain spot. What do you do there? What do you do? And he so I think this is why the guided workflow is important. I was going to ask you too, where does the guided workflow? What's the limitations of it as of now? What is it? Is it service, install? What
No,
else?
so if you do anything with MeasureQuick now, you understand that we do have this. Choose a process, and it's either install. Have you been here before with MeasureQuick?
Yeah.
And Jim and I got in a serious argument. I'm like, while if I've been here with MeasureQuick before, it's because on the map it says you've freaking been here before. You got a freaking job I've done here before. It says, okay, I've been here before. Press the freaking icon because you've been here before. So we overcame that, and now we're like, okay, this is completely different workflows. And my goal now is to come up with a start screen that makes sure people get it, because before they could pick either one, and you can manage your way through it. It didn't really matter. We asked you a few things about install and that kind of stuff, but there wasn't much of a difference. Now there is a clear difference. So, but yeah, if you don't like it, you just hit exit and go back to old MeasureQuick.
So I have a question.
Not to throw the whole conversation off, but real quick, is there? I don't think there is, but is there a feature like if I'm on MeasureQuick and I'm at an address, will it only show me work orders from that I've put in there, my company's put in there, or is there a feature where I can see this other company was just here a month ago and they also processed some sort of information in a MeasureQuick, and I can see that as well?
You can only see what you've paid for. So if you go to a job, and you can only see your jobs you've done. So that's the concept. So we don't allow you to see what everybody else is doing.
You should add that as a feature for 10 qubits. Like, I need to see the history of this job.
Like 10 Marlboro points, you can see this. Perfect.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I'm sure we could add that. Yeah.
I don't see you writing it down, Joe. I don't know how you're.
I don't write anything down. It's all. I just keep track of it all. It's all
Okay.
Good. Right. Yeah, right. So right. Yeah, right.
That's what I tell my kids when I don't want to do something for them.
So what do you think? Is there going to be a guided workflow for heating?
There is. And what's great is they're like, okay, Joe, we'll get it done as soon as you send it to me. In fact, it'll be done in September, way before the heating season comes into play. So we'll overcome a few things like, if anybody uses our heating, furnaces are a freaking bitch, man. Damn, they're just so much more complicated. So if you start with MeasureQuick in the winter, you are thrilled to do a cooling job, because you're like, damn, that's it. That profile's one page and that's it. I just got to do a few things here. It's super easy. But the furnace, clocking the meter, man, everybody complains about clocking the meter. And I'm like, well, it is in your install. If you pull out your install manual from your manufacturer, it says go clock your meter. So that's really one of the challenges. So what I've learned, because again, we're doing these things. Jim goes to the lab, does some stuff, and doesn't realize the challenges. So his meter is right next to the trainer. So I go out to my homes and I'm doing stuff, and I'm like, okay, I go outside to clock the meter, and guess what? I just lost connectivity to my freaking carbon, my measurement device for my brain. I have a brain fart here. One of you supposed to fill in here what I'm missing here.
Your combustion analyzer.
Yeah, combustion analyzers. That's right. Thanks. It's been a long Monday. So yeah, so you lose connectivity. So we're trying to figure out how to make sure all that stuff comes back. So right.
Let me ask you this, Joe. I don't know if you know this, but I've been hearing this rumor. But are they gonna have repeatability with a higher version of Bluetooth yet?
Thanks, Michael.
I heard that they were gonna have some sort of repeater setup, kind of like we could do on the old iManifold stuff. Do you know anything about that?
What do you mean repeaters?
Like with the Zigbee protocol, we could repeat
right.
with the probes. And I heard that like Bluetooth 5.0 or 6.0 or something like that was going to have some sort of repeatability. Do you know?
It could. The one thing that you can do, in fact, I made him change one word, and then Jim sent me a screenshot. Like it's like Joe, whatever we fucking do, it doesn't matter. Somebody's going to complain about it. So in
No.
MeasureQuick, oh yeah, that's right. So in MeasureQuick, you can see your measurements, when you're on one of the screens. So if you're on I don't know if it'll show up or not. When you're on the indoor screen, yeah, that works out great. Okay. You can see the measurements. I can see all my indoor measurements. And at the top, there used to be a thing called capture. And people forgot to uncapture because they would just capture it and just run away and not realize that all those measurements are now frozen. So I'm like, Jim, let's change it to hold. This is really a hold feature. And then people
Yeah,
are
because
like,
when I hear
well,
capture,
yeah,
I'm thinking like it'll
right.
hold on to that particular data for. Well, I mean, hold. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want you to hold on to it. And when you come back, you should do it. So if you have connectivity issues, you just press the hold button and it'll hold those
Got it.
measurements. We're trying to make you think that you should release that hold because otherwise it'll stay there until you leave the job. So I didn't really like the capture concept because we didn't want to capture and we wanted you to allow you to walk away 2 miles to go to the outside unit or vice versa. So there is a way to try and work around that. So the one thing that I realized, and I'm willing to throw this out because you probably got at least 4 or 5 listeners here. Okay.
Don't give us that much credit. There's
okay,
two. There's 2.
Okay. So, but I'm willing to get on a call for people. What I've learned is that I'll get on a call with somebody and like, oh yeah, how do I do that? And I'm like, oh, you do this, or how do I overcome these problems? Because it's not the little dicky stuff is also kind of hard to figure out. So if you guys if somebody wants to contact me, Joe at MeasureQuick, I'll clearly get on a call with you and be like, hey, oh yeah, these little dicky things you're having a problem with, this is how you do that. Because I know,
hey, you dumb shit. These little dicky things you're dealing with are wasting my time.
Yeah, but I'm willing to get on the phone. I'll waste my time with you as long as you now go, okay, I now understand how to use the little dicky shit a whole lot better. So that's my focus. So if you know what, I don't mind getting on a call with people and help them do that. How many of us have been on doing something on our phone or whatever, and you have to go to YouTube to find some 10-year-old who freaking did a video about how to do this. You're like, shit, that's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, I had to hook up a Wi-Fi extender in my house.
Is that like one of those pills you get at the gas station, Bill?
The Rhino Thunder 3000 pills.
Yeah, the extender ones.
No, but if you see my desk all of a sudden flip over, then the pill just kicked in. Because I took one earlier because I got to get ready for tonight.
Good luck with that.
No, technology like this Wi-Fi extender it took me way too long to figure out, and I had to do that same thing. Go on YouTube, watch some 14-year-old kid just show me up, and yeah.
I think I've talked about this before, but like I have I create content on YouTube and stuff, but yet I have to have my 13-year-old come in and help me with stuff all the time. I'm like, sweetie, can you come in and like help me figure this out? And she's like, yeah, Dad, just do this and do that. And it's like,
yeah,
how do you,
bro.
Yeah, bro. This kid, smart kid, but yep.
So what's next for MeasureQuick? Anything?
Yeah, so we're venturing down a lot of other paths. So we actually are partnering with NCI. So anybody here, NCI people, then you'll be happy to know that they actually do work with memberships and the ability to just pay a certain amount per month or per year or whatever, and that'll now integrate. So the challenge is that people can't make a good app. It's the reality. ACA couldn't make an app. A lot of people can't make a good app. I know JB is out there. They wanted an app. So people come to us. We make great apps, and we are actually a hub. Is what we really are. We're a hub for a variety of resources. So ACA is working with us, and so is NCI. So if you want to do an NCI work, you're going to end up going through MeasureQuick, just because you will pick that project and you'll go through it, do an NCI workflow. That's where we're headed.
Interesting. So did NCI get rid of their existing app?
They're fading it out. It's just a lot of work for these companies to maintain an app that works.
Yeah.
And people that are programming it understand English, let alone what the hell you're doing.
Right.
So that's really a major problem. Is they're like, oh yeah, we did that, and you're like, no, that's not what we wanted. A loss in translation. So we do it, and we do it well. So people acknowledge that. And so same with ACA. ACA had an app that 7 people used, and they realized that wasn't really good. So we're now trying to figure that out, and that's a whole shit show is the only way to describe it, because you're dealing with something that's super complicated, like a freaking HVAC system, and you want to do high level diagnostics, and then you take a standard 5, which is a whole nother high level of other types of stuff to do, and you put them together, and you're like, damn, this is.
I appreciate your honesty, Joe. It's enlightening to have someone that just says it like it is. So
it is. It's tough. So the standard 5 is awesome, but it's really cumbersome and a lot of stuff to do. And most HVAC technicians are like, man, I got 45 minutes to get it out of here. Like, what can I do and you're like, damn, not a lot. So
Yeah, I'm here on a $39.99 tune-up. I'm not gonna do all that shit.
right.
Yeah, but also the industry needs to change when it comes to that crap. That's something that I push against all the time because people are constantly saying, how many calls do you get done a day? And I said, it changes every day. I might get one done, I might get two done. That's
See, I think that's a fine, like, I don't know if he's even a line to juggle, but it's a fine line of the industry does need to change, meaning like technicians, a lot of technicians need to up their game and start really exploring some of this stuff in airflow and the building science, but also the customer base needs to understand like their comfort comes at a cost. Like if you want to be comfortable in your home, it's, you know, you got to pay good money because these technicians aren't going to learn this stuff for free.
But I think that the general public needs to relearn what comfort is too, because they need to understand that
comfort is possible.
Yes. Because people don't even know what comfort is. You know, they're like, well, but my thermostat doesn't say 68 degrees. Yeah, but do you feel comfortable? What's the humidity? Like, you know, what's the difference between this new system? I know Adam goes through this when he downsizes dramatically all the time, you know, and it's like, no, this is how it's supposed to work, but it never shuts off. Well, no shit, because it's designed to run. Like, you know,
and you know, I've posted about that online, and people are like, "Well, you're supposed to have those kind of conversations with the people in the beginning before you install it." It's like, well, I do, and then you know, 8 months go by and they forget about it, and then the cooling season starts, and they're like, "Well, it's running nonstop," and it's like, "Awesome, we did good," you know, that's great, but
my old one turned on and off. This would be me, but my existing unit turns off 6 times every hour. Like it runs, you know, and my house is cool.
I don't know. I think all these little nuances, standards, apps, and everything else is like driving like positive change in the industry. Like I still think everything's a freaking dumpster fire right now. It's a freaking hot mess. At least in the Chicagoland area, it's bad. But
you mean as like
as an industry,
right? Like
as an industry, it's bad. But I feel like there's like a ray of hope. You know what I mean? Sunshine. There's a ray of light. What's the
well, there is, because there's a few of us that are active on social media that are talking about this, and we're interested in it, so it's making other people interested in it.
Yeah, we're that ray of light.
Wait, I want to tangent because you guys talk about comfort, right? And now most of America is well exceeded their dynamics that everybody designed a system for. Okay, so and it's happened. It's not like those are usually intended to be like, well, you may have a few days that exceed this, not 3 months, right, or 2 months or 3 weeks. So and it's not as though this isn't going to continue. So I just want to find out what kind of what's your approach when you know you have to tell your client that, well, we never anticipated to be 110 degrees for a month. So I know you're uncomfortable, but you know what, I can't fix this. You know, how do you have that conversation with them that it's not your system, it's just the environment, and the only way to fix this is something that's extremely challenging, that when this ends you'll be happy because you'll be back to normal comfort. But I can't fathom what people are doing in Texas and Arizona and others, that there's no way those people could be meeting anywhere they're comfortable.
That's a good point.
I think though that if you approach it looking at the home and do a blower door test, do thermal imaging, find out infiltration, and then size the load appropriately, you are going to be okay. But if you're just going out there and throwing a box,
but like I think what Joe's saying is like this year's been like a record year in some areas. I haven't tracked. I had an argument with somebody a few weeks ago about Miami, and they were saying that basically in 5 years it's going to be 10 degrees hotter or whatever than it is right now, and every year progressively it gets hotter. I took like screenshots of bin data from 2009 and then whatever in between all the way up to 2021. I'm like, it's basically the same temperature. It's like we're off by a half a degree. I get it, this year is a lot hotter, but like the trend over time is different. But I do understand what you're saying, Joe, and that is a hard conversation to have with somebody, especially if they're I do think customers need to be conditioned on feeling comfortable versus just looking at the dial on the thermostat. When it is 100 degrees outside and you're able to get their house to 78, when you walk in from outside, 78 feels pretty darn good, I
mean, you just got to let them know like your current system has limitations. It just simply wasn't designed to handle this sort of workload. And like moving forward, you could try to design a system that can handle the 2 weeks of these extreme temperatures that you're going to see in a year. But Are you going to pay premium dollars for that system to be able to ramp up that high and then also ramp itself down? And
then are you going to overcool for the rest of the year,
Yeah.
overheat for the
Well,
rest of the
yeah.
year?
What do you say then? We could oversize your system, but we really need to install a dehumidification system on the side to make sure that you're not
or I
moisture.
can sell you a purple light and you're going to be healthy and comfortable.
Yeah.
No issues.
Yeah, right. That's the answer. So the one thing that I've been asking your industry for a long time, and I'm sure I'll get, maybe somebody will chime in on the background. You guys have to answer. So, and Adam, you know the answer, so don't answer. So what's the largest duct system that you guys work with in a normal residential house? What's the largest duct system?
What do you mean by duct system?
I'll let you guys define it.
Okay, as in like
the house is the duct
The
system.
house is the duct system. That's right. Well to go.
Oh, okay, I
So,
see where you're
that's right.
going.
So, but it's also the most ignored duct system that most people deal with when
Yeah.
you're an HVAC contractor. You're like, you know what, I got these little square things, and I'm in control of this, not realizing that it's the house, as you talked about. You should do a blower door or duct leakage test, all those kind of performance tests, but they just ignore the envelope as their huge issue. And if you're dealing with these kind of temperatures, those kind of things, it isn't the temperature that's radiating through the actual, it's actually the air leakage that's actually impacting so many people being uncomfortable with these high temperatures. That hot goes to cold. Man, your air is flying in these houses, and it's just causing all kinds of problems. So yeah, especially from the top down. Yeah.
I worry that and so I'm in California, and we have every regulation possible. We have all these rules and all this stuff, and you have to do duct tests and duct blaster tests and HERS rating and all this different stuff. And I know I piss a lot of people off when I say this, but I mean, here, HERS rating in general, I mean, there's a few good HERS raters, but a lot of them are just passing people. They're just pushing them on through. And that worries me because, again, that's just giving the industry another bad name. These guys are doing it right? They're installing and they're doing duct testing and they're doing all this stuff. And so how do we get past that? That's the struggle is how do we get these people that actually want to make people comfortable instead of, and this is going to be hard for me to say, but instead of just wanting to make money, because I know we have to make money as a business, but we also have to do our jobs right.
Like, how do you get, are you talking like about how to get technicians to start taking this stuff
right? How to get
more
companies,
importantly, or
it needs
more
to go
seriously?
past technicians though. I mean, when you've got mega residential business owners that have never even seen what a wrench is, that just are concerned about money, pushing people all the
just
time.
pushing boxes.
That's why I said the industry needs to change, because we're so focused on how many calls are we going to get done a day? No, that's not what I'm calling. I have a shit ton of calls, but I'm only going to get to what I'm going to get to.
Well, and I think everything is like, everyone's looking for a shortcut, for the easy answer for everything. Rules of thumb, right? Hey, we have bad indoor air quality. Let's get a Remy Halo. Let's get a iWave or whatever, right?
But I think
we want to design a duct system. That was another conversation I had with somebody else the other day. Everyone sizes duct systems at 0.1 on the duculator, right? There was actually duculators that showed with an arrow at 0.1 residential. This is how you design it. Then there was another guy who was saying, well, it's a lost art. All you got to do is take I don't remember what he said. Diameter times 2 plus 2 or something like that. That's all you need. I'm like, yeah, not really. That's like a step up from 0.1 inches, right?
Yeah.
So like everyone's looking for something that is easy. They want the easy button, easy money. They don't want to do any work to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I really am frustrated with your industry is that the car industry had some problems years ago. You guys are all a little young that I'm looking at right now. You don't really remember this, but in the late 80s and the 90s, Ford and most of the American manufacturers were just shit shows. They just made shitty stuff. Yeah, right. So yeah, they had that actually was a time before you guys. So and then it impacted them because everybody went and started buying Japanese cars, and then the Japanese realized ways to make them here. So but it forced Chrysler and Ford and everybody to make a better frickin' product, right? You guys don't have this like overview. People think that it's the box. Well, whatever's on the name of the box must be bad. They didn't realize that it's actually the technicians that were in the factory that were making crappy stuff, right? That's what made the car bad, was because they were union jobs. They didn't give a shit. So that's really the problem, is that people aren't realizing that it's probably the guy. When I was a home inspector, we all were like, oh, what's the best system to put in, and blah blah blah. And the guy was a HVAC. He goes, it isn't. It's the person who installs it. It's the person who actually did the good job, or the person who did the crappy job with the same exact piece of equipment, determine on whether or not it actually was effective. So that's really the challenge, is that people are just not realizing that it's the technician who makes or breaks their comfort.
I get that question a lot during my live streams and through emails. People asking me, what's the best ice machine? What's the best air conditioner? And a lot of times they could be business owners. They could be all these different people, homeowners, whatever. And I always say, whatever your service technician likes to install, whatever they like to work on, because it's all about comfortability, right? Because I don't like this brand of air conditioner because I'm not used to working on it, but I'm really comfortable working on this and this. So it's all about what people
I think you see all these like traveling salesmen that are selling like ways to make a ton of money and go into somebody's house and sell them all this crap, right? And there's sleazy ones out there. There's some good ones out there. One thing I have to say about MeasureQuick is if you follow the MeasureQuick workflow, you will probably find something wrong with the system that you could recommend to the homeowner. And you could turn it over into a sale and make money for your company. If you're making commission or whatever else, and that's a legitimate thing, you're actually doing a service to help the customer in the long run.
And at the very least, you're going to cover your ass on callbacks. When they call back a month later when it's really hot, I'm like, yeah, you were just here and you replaced a capacitor or whatever, and it's still not keeping me cool. And you're like, well, Mrs. Jones, I did test this, this, and this, and you need to upgrade your whatever, your duct system or whatever.
So we have stats to say that most people that do really probe up every time increase their ticket 40 to 60%.
Right.
You know, it just people don't think it's worth their time to do that for the tiny stuff.
I'll tell you, like when I was first trying to learn in the beginning, dude, I thought I was Steve Reardon in a basement. I have freaking flashing lights on every angle. There's doohickeys hanging off this, that. I have tubes everywhere. I'm going through, capture this, next that. And then I go to the end and it's like, I screw up and the report is missing things. And it's like, what did I do wrong? I just spent so much time setting this all up. I have no clue what's going on. That's why I think like when you were telling me about the guided workflow, I'm like, this is going to be a game changer for people, because like, I'm sure if that happened to me, that had to happen to other people as well too.
Happened to me. Right. Yeah. I get it. Right. Yeah.
And when you go through that experience and you're like, you're trying to get through your day and you're like, well, I'm just going to do what I always do because it's easier.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I got people who are already telling me this, cutting 10 minutes off of their MeasureQuick process, not just their process, because they're using MeasureQuick. Like, you know what, I actually cut 10% off. And the other one is forcing you to finish your job. Like in terms of MeasureQuick, we actually want you to exit and save. And people don't do that. They go to the next job and like, oh, I'm still in that last job. So, and that's Friday to Monday. So you're not getting all your stuff saved, a lot of stuff. So we actually just kind of just stick with it. And here's how you'll do that. So once you've owned MeasureQuick and you know how to just use it as another tool, use it as you want. But until then, we really are helping you figure out a way to use all the process and all the stuff that we spent millions of dollars to do. You can go through it. We added lots of stuff that you can skip. People are like, I don't want to do that. So we're like, okay, fine. We gave you a skip button. So quit crying and move on. So we try to accommodate the way everybody wants to try and work based upon how hot it is, where attic, crawl space, whatever it is. We're trying to give you options, still use MeasureQuick and get the job done and figure out what's there.
That's cool. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm hoping that it makes the process smoother, because I don't do a lot of the workflows, but I have done them. And just like Adam said, I've gotten lost in there, and it's like, wait, what? Oh, yeah. What did I got lost. I wanted to ask this question earlier. Adam, are you a person that likes to read instructions before you do something?
I usually read the instructions after I screw something up.
What about you, Bill? Yeah. Do you like to read instructions before you do it?
No, I don't. Like,
because I think instructions are dumb, and I think things should be intuitive. You should be able to turn things on and just work with it, flow with it.
Yeah, right.
So,
well, we assume that with software specifically, that, you know what, this should be designed for a fourth grader to open it up and figure out how to do it and move.
You do that, and I'll be good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we did.
A fourth grader from America, not India.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because those are second graders. They can.
Yeah, because the fourth grader from India are the ones writing the program.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, I kind of ask everybody this, Joe, like, is there anything you would recommend to like technicians who are maybe thinking about, like, they're thinking about this whole building science, airflow, and the entire idea of like, well, now I have this whole system as a house, instead of looking at it as just a linear box that's got a problem with ductwork. Like, what would you say to these technicians that are just maybe intimidated by once they kind of hear about all this airflow and all this stuff and all the variables. Any advice, any tips, recommendations, how to make them gravitate more towards wanting to pursue this?
The science that's already in your field is just stunning. Trying to compress a refrigerant to make it colder or hotter, that's like really crazy shit, right? So the fact that you could simplify it by talking about what's happening with smaller pressures in the house that actually are impacting all of what you're doing in the house is a simpler way to think about it. That the building science in the house is not complicated compared to if you're trying to understand the refrigerant cycle itself. So the home is a system. So when you think about it, actually I modified that. It's the home and the occupants are a system. All right. So if you think about what it is you're trying to do to the house and you're forgetting that anything you do impacts everything in the house, including the occupants and vice versa, you'll start to realize that, I told you, like, so when you go to their house and like, wow, we're really uncomfortable. And like, well, maybe you should close your windows,
maybe stop breathing so heavily.
Yeah. There's just so many obvious things that are part of the process. Or, you clearly have an older home and you've got a nasty ass crawl space, and I can smell the humidity coming up from your floor, and your drainage outside is sending water into your crawl space, and you're wondering why your humidity is so high. Even on a slab, your drainage around the house will increase your humidity in your house. So there's just, when you start, it's like the bulb goes off. And once you're like, oh my God, I get it now. You can't tell them to change their gutters or put gutters in, but it's just a whole lot easier to understand why my humidity is out of control is because of the things they've actually done that I have no control over. And you guys are the last person to stand. You're like, you know what? I'm uncomfortable, and it's freaking you. You're like, well, why? Because your builder built a shitty house. It's got lots of leakage. That's my problem. You're like, oh yeah. Or your crawl space is in your drainage is bad. That's my problem. So you guys are the brunt of it all, because you're supposed to fix it all with just some duct work and some temperatures. And that's a real tough place to be in, because it's hard to be like, you know what, your builder built a crappy house. So, and I'm trying to fix that for you. So can you work with me here? That doesn't go over well. So, but again, if you understand the science, then you'll at least feel better about what you're trying to do to fix the bad environment.
I think that as a technician too, I'm getting into the home performance just ever so slightly with my own little project. And it's very interesting because it makes me even more curious when I run into weird things. I cleaned my evaporator coil, and I measured how much more my problematic room in my house got pressurized. Went from 14 pascals to 21 pascals of overpressurization, right? Because we don't have a return path. And that stuff is intriguing to me. It's like, oh, okay. So that just furthermore proves that,
I think it's funny that, like, me, I don't know, I'm assuming most residential techs out there probably are in the same boat I was in for many years, and you guys as well too. I know you guys are commercial and you do a lot of kitchen stuff, Bill, and that, but there's like a disconnect, and you don't really understand building performance, home performance, and it's like, hey, but they're totally interrelated. And you might have a problem that's completely separate from HVAC that you're ignoring, and you are trying to do something that is going to even, more so negatively impact the problem at the end. And that also goes into different facets of HVAC and different details that people ignore on service calls or whatnot. Like you were talking about earlier, Chris, airflow and this and that. If you're not looking at everything, and that's your tagline, the big picture, right?
Yeah.
But like, if you're not looking at the entire system, you're leaving so much out.
I just thought of a new tagline. Keep going.
What's my new tagline, Bill?
No, it's mine. You can't have it.
Got it.
If you're not looking at everything, you're looking at nothing.
I'm going to copyright you on that one, because I think that's kind of infringing on my big picture diagnoses thing.
Nope.
So, yeah. No, but you're right.
That's going to be MeasureQuick's new logo next
Son of a bitch.
He's currently getting the domain right now.
Yeah.
Right. Done. Got it. Okay.
Got
$10.
it.
Done.
Yep.
I get nothing.
You're right though, Adam. It's you do have to look at the big picture, and you have to understand everything. I can remember back to when because I was taught to charge an air conditioner just by looking at pressures, right? And I could remember, like, I keep putting gas in here and the pressures are where they're supposed to be, but it's not getting cool. I can remember that mentality and being so confused in my head. Why isn't this working? I know it has something to do with airflow, but I don't understand the airflow. I don't get it. And so then you start working your way through things, and it's really enlightening. But we also have to be careful though too, because the new guys coming into the trade, and I think that's where these softwares can help out, because the new guys coming into the trade, they're not gonna know everything right now. There's no way in hell. And
Right,
it can
but
be
like
overwhelming.
when you have like MeasureQuick, like FieldP, some of these other ones, MeasureQuick is like the ultimate of programs though, because it shows you everything. When you could see airflow, you could see how much latent heat you're removing. 100% of everything's on the screen. Just swipe back and forth, inside, outside, electrical.
It's almost like we're sponsored by MeasureQuick with all the positive energy we're putting out into the world on their behalf.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But what the thing that blew me away that Jim had done, in fact, there's several times in the beginning, like, what am I doing here? Really? This is so challenging. And then I realized how much effort they put into. There isn't anything that's in people are like, oh, what a great looking set of gauges, but click on, they're all buttons. They're not gauges, they're buttons. You click on every one of them, and we actually tell you what your target should be. Field piece does not have targets. They don't calculate targets. So right there, field piece is like only giving you guesswork as to what it should be. Do your own homework. But we also then have this whole thing about, let me educate you. Let me tell you why it's high or what you should look for. We send you off to, Brian Orr's space, whatever you need to do as a new technician. Jim is trying to educate you. In fact, Jim has got a goal, and I kind of laughed and I'm like, yeah, good luck with that, Jim. Jim wants to change the industry, and I'm like, yeah, good luck with that, Jim. But when you look at if you really like MeasureQuick, even if I don't care about what you think about that it doesn't work for your process or how you use it, but what he put his heart and soul in to try to educate the technician is there. And if people understand what they're trying to learn or want to learn, it's there. And Elon Musk, despite his weird personality, he wanted to change how people did a certain thing, how you go into space, how you use electric cars. He's doing that. And I think Jim has got this vision that if we could just figure out a way to break through, we would have the ability to try to help people know more about what they're doing. Whether you use it for the full features or not, there's just really great information that's in there. So when people say, oh yeah, I don't really know what that is or how that works. Well, if you turn MeasureQuick on and clicked on the high superheat or subcool or whatever it was, there it is, telling you what the hell you should be looking for or why it's that way. So we really try to be a missing link for the industry besides Brian Orr and all the other stuff you guys do. It's just immediate access.
For sure. The social media has made things so much better too, because people don't have to just read about some new thing in a magazine. They can actually click on their phone, watch a video at home, and get inspired or get intrigued to want to do better, to see someone doing something, So I think social media is really cool for that aspect.
Bill, you asked what's the one thing that you try and could tell somebody in this industry? And to me, the thing is like, you know what? If this isn't your industry, get out. If you don't want to be this, if this isn't your like call to,
if you're miserable, move on.
Sure. Because you're in the way. You're actually causing problems. You're making bad cars. Just get the frick out of the way for other people to come in and do a better job. I know that we're short on people doing this work, but you're not helping in any way because you're not learning. You're not actually taking the time to make that system as best as it could be. So go find something else you want to do in life, because this is not really where you belong.
Well, and everybody deserves to be happy. They really do. You have to put effort into it. So I mentioned that too. If you don't like what you're doing, if you're miserable at your job, there's only one person that's the problem, and it's you, because you have the choice to move on. Yeah,
you got a skill. You got amazing skill. If you don't be like HVAC technician, go be an electrician. Go be something, because you are skilled. Yep. Everybody's trying to look for you right now. So if this isn't it, go do something else.
Yep.
But I think as a population, a majority of people don't take whatever it is they're trying to do in life, and they don't push it to as far as they can take it. They're just like sort of half in, half out. Like they're not going to go all in and 100%. Like if I'm an HVAC technician, like, yeah, I'm not going to go home and read. I'm not going to pursue all this extra knowledge after work, or if I'm an electrician, the same thing.
If every HVAC technician, at the end of the day, just sat down and thought to themselves, asked themselves one question, the industry would be a lot better. They just sat down and said, WWJD. What would you do?
Just stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious, my friends.
So I think it's time we wrap this up, but I do want to ask you one more question, Joe. How do people, as corny as this is, like, MeasureQuick is, I know that you guys are open to feedback and open to comments and stuff. What's the best method for people to reach out to you guys to ask questions?
So surprisingly, Jim is straightforward. You send an email to Jim, he'll respond to you usually that day, right? And same with myself. I may not do it immediately like he does, but I still get back to you the same day. So you can send it to jim@measurequick.com or joe@measurequick.com. And using the reply, there's our freaking cell phone too. So, we're super open to what you guys are doing and what it is that's not working or how to make it better, or so whatever it is that you think is good, bad, or indifferent, we'll hear about it and we'll explain why we're doing what we're doing as best we can. So, our goal is to make you better technicians, and that's all it is. So if it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, we're not here to push anything on you.
And I say that feedback helps companies to grow. So you don't got to be a jerk about it. But I mean, if you're running into a problem or you think that there can be a better way to test something, understand they're not always going to go with your idea. They're not always going to do that. But I mean, feedback is always good. Shoot it in an email. Let them know, like, hey,
well thought
really
out
like
feedback, I would say.
Yeah. Usually want to know what. So if you're having a problem, give us as much information as you can. But many of the features that are in there came from users like you guys. They're like, you know what? Do we have this problem? Or I got this, or you know what? I'm getting these weird measurements. And Jim goes to the lab and modifies our whole lab to re-simulate what it is what you experience, and then tries to figure out, okay, and then we add that as a fault. So that's how a lot of stuff gets built into MeasureQuick, is that you guys find stuff and we figure out a way to, once we know these measurements should be, boom, there you go. Yes, that's right. Well, you guys don't work for free, so why should anybody else? That's really our philosophy.
He's just messing with you.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, Michael. It's all good, Michael. Right.
He knows where you live.
Yeah.
Hey, last question.
Michael has 3 phones because he can actually, or some people do, they can take a picture of themselves taking a picture of the screenshot.
Oh, see, I also had a better idea for that. I carry translucent paper, so I just put it over top of my screen and I trace out the gauges and the numbers.
Oh, nice. Right.
And then I just hand it to the customer, like, here's your scribble,
This
old
is
lady.
Bill. He writes out all the data onto a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. There's your measure.
Traces.
report.
That's right. Little traces.
There we
That's
go.
right. Yeah.
I got my typewriter in a big
Copyright that.
suitcase. I plop it up there and I'm like, there we go. Here's your report.
The irony.
I'm not.
I know.
giving
Well,
them
I know there's
verbal
some people that are
points.
regenerating on Photoshop. They're like, I'll go back and I'll redo this. So it looks
Oh my
as,
gosh.
done.
Can you imagine how much time?
Oh, yeah, the effort it takes to do something so
Oh my
menial.
gosh. This is awesome. Well, Joe, this has been really cool, dude. It's been cool that you were willing to come on here, and thank you for doing that.
But nobody freaked out about what we were all expecting. We're all like, oh my God, everybody's going to shout about one damn thing. But they didn't. I didn't see hardly anybody except one joke about it. So
I was deleting all those. So I don't want you to feel bad.
oh, okay. Well,
He
think
wasn't.
it's
I
only
deleted
people were
them
talking
all
about
in the
things like, yeah. It's a personal comment that I take personally, but that's it.
Nah.
See, I was just curious. Does like Jim only hire people at MeasureQuick that look like him?
So when they hired me, they did a Facebook post and like Joe won the look-alike contest. So we hired him. In fact,
Like
I was going to come on and be like, I'm Jim. I should have just
Yeah.
come on and be like,
That's funny.
yeah,
See,
Jim here.
The last time Jim was on here, we asked him a question at the beginning of the show, and I think he ended the question when he answered it at the end of the show. 145 minutes later, it
I
currently
wasn't
holds
there
the
that
record.
show. You guys told me to. I was so bummed because I wanted to be on that
know,
show.
I mean, Jim's a great guy, and I rag on him behind his back on this all the time, and he'll probably never find out about this, but because he doesn't watch the show. But yeah, it was like, I think it still holds the record in the Guinness Book of the world's longest answered question of like 145 minutes. True.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
work with the guy. Right. But ironically, he only wants to be on a phone call for like less than 9 seconds. Yeah. What is it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye. I'm like, okay. Great. Yeah.
I genuinely, and I don't know if it's just my family or what, but I hate being on the phone. I really don't
Mhm.
like, but I also don't like texting either. I think texting is even stupider. So like, I'd rather get it done with a phone call, but I'm a very like, all right, cool. Yeah. Sounds good. Right on. Bye.
No, I think the voice message thing is the way to go because it's easier than text, and you don't need to do all the small talk in between the point you're trying to make.
So we have
I don't ever listen to my voicemail. You voicemail me like, okay.
no,
Okay,
not
well,
voicemail.
yeah.
We do. We have a Facebook Messenger chat for the Overtime group,
yeah,
and we'll
Facebook
leave
sucks.
messages like audio messages that anybody can go back and listen to.
Mhm.
So if two of us are talking back and forth, it's like being on the phone, but we don't like, you just hit
Right.
record, you say it, and then you keep driving.
It's
you know?
because we don't really like to listen to each other. We just like
Yeah.
to talk at each other. That's how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah. Well, we talk to hear ourselves, but you know, Facebook sucks, so I'm not going to join that.
Oh, I 100% talk to hear myself. I don't know if I've ever
Yeah.
told you guys this, but every message that I leave you guys, I listen to the message after I leave it.
That's so
Literally,
gay.
so I leave a message.
I
and
wouldn't
then
tell
listen to
people
myself
that. I wouldn't ever repeat that on any
Oh,
other
That's a
show.
good point,
Oh,
Joe.
if you the stuff I put out there, I'm a little bit, not a little bit, I'm a lot of it insane.
Narcissistic, you mean?
100%. I listen. To
No, we're
myself.
all insane, but nobody listens to what their own voicemails were.
Nope.
That's crazy.
I do.
Nope, not me ever.
Well, I appreciate what you guys are doing. You're doing for the industry. You're doing for so many other people. And the real problem is that the people that are doing shitty work aren't here. I've been preaching that forever. I've been talking to people and doing education for probably 20 plus years. And like the problem is that the people that are not here to be better are in this room, or they're not here. They're not doing social media. They're not chiming in. They're not listening to all of the people that are great,
Mhm.
creating great content. So that's our real problem is that those who are the problems are people are not actually improving themselves, nor are they actually able to digest all the great stuff you offer. So I appreciate all your efforts and everything you guys do.
Thank you.
On that note, Mike Henderson _HVAC, he's here. So on that note, let's go ahead and end the show.
Oh wait, Mike, I need your contact information, bro. I've been trying to contact you for a while. So
How about his home
There you
warranty?
go.
yeah,
Mike,
why don't you post your phone number right here for everybody to see? That'd be great. You
Don't
got my
forget-
information. Send me an email. Right.
Shout out to our little buddy Randy and Luke out there.
Yep.
Watching the replay tonight.
With their
I could only